The 2024 Republican presidential primary field is taking shape.
The battle lines are becoming clearer, and so is the field of candidates.
Is the odds-on favorites, if you look at the polling, still Trump versus Biden?
That seems to be it, but it's just way too early to tell.
I'm more angry now, and I'm more committed now than I ever was.
Big challenge for these candidates is going to be how do they navigate Donald Trump? And how do they navigate Ron DeSantis?
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
Welcome back to the Ruthless Variety Program. A big week continues, fellas. A full complement, cast and compliment.
Yeah.
Good to see you all.
We're here.
Yeah, we are here. Josh Holmes, Comfortably Smug, Michael Duncan, and John Ashbrook coming at you. We've got a big show. We got a big show. It's been a bunch of big weeks.
It really has. I mean, the schedule has not let up. We've been doing a lot on the road.
You've been busy. You just have been really putting your back in.
Yeah, you know, someone's got to carry it.
Perfect attendance record.
100%.
I will say that Tuesday's episode, your airline rant, was amongst my favorite that we've had here on the program.
It came straight from the heart.
I could tell.
That was clear. That was clear, and it was so natural, and that's what the best comedy is.
My favorite part was when he goes, and another thing. It's like, we hadn't had enough.
At the same level of intensity for another 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Just furious about his service that he's getting on the airlines. Well, I appreciate it. It's fantastic.
Millions of Americans earn and use credit card rewards. A few big box retailers want to take those rewards away. Rewards we use on groceries and school supplies. The cash back to save on gas and grow our small businesses. And travel miles we use to make memories. The so-called Credit Card Competition Act would eliminate credit card rewards. No more travel miles, no more cash back. When lawmakers help mega retailers line their pockets, we pay for it. Tell your lawmaker to vote no on the big box bill. Visit handsoffmyrewards.com to take action today.
We've got like I said, we've got a big show. One thing that I caught today, which I couldn't help but sort of take notice of, as loyal listeners to the Ruthless Variety Program, you know that we endeavor to have every presidential candidate in to talk to you about their presidential campaign.
That's right.
And thus far, we've been quite successful in that regard.
Yes.
Other than Donald Trump, who sent his senior emissary, Chris LaCivita, on not one but two occasions to come talk to us. Other than him, anybody that's polling in the top, 8 has come in, except one. And I couldn't help but notice today, Hugh Hewitt has the same problem.
Would you look at that?
He had the same problem. He took to Twitter to complain about a confirmed guest that he had this morning that ultimately canceled at the last moment after he'd sent out a promotion for the show about this presidential candidate coming on. You know how we hate that at the Variety Program.
Yeah. Not fans.
You know how, you remember how Caitlyn Jenner got it. And that was, I think we let her off light. Him, her, whatever.
Yeah.
Off light. This is a situation where Tim Scott, apparently, according to Hugh, is the hardest person in this field to book. And it was like, oh my God, you too.
And apparently he canceled, we're talking an hour before showtime. Was like, oh, actually, no, I'm not going to do the show.
It just blows my mind because we've had Tim Scott on twice, I think. Terrific guest. Like him personally a lot. He's been terrific. We talked to him about his book when he wanted to come in and talk about his book. We went in and talked about legislation when he had legislation. And he ran for president. We're like, all right, we got a 60-day clock for you. 60 days comes and goes. I haven't heard hide nor hair from any of them.
I think he might be busy with his girlfriend, right? The one who doesn't exist.
Oh,
Smug.
Brutal.
Smug. But, it's interesting, right? Because each of these campaigns, I feel like, and I know that you all have your own individual relationships within the presidential campaigns, but I feel like I talk to almost a third of the field every day, and it's a different third every day. But I'm talking to them, and they're giving us real-time insight into what they're seeing, their internal poll numbers, their takes, their whatever. And do you have anything out of that?
Right. Every one of these campaigns has a different level of aggression. And we've talked ad nauseum about how the Trump campaign this time around is much more organized than anybody would guess. And the other campaigns, Nikki Haley reaching out all the time, Ron DeSantis team reaching out all the time. Every other campaign seems to have sort of like the level of professionalism you would expect from a Senate campaign plus. And what's wild to me is that the Scott team is not without people.
No, there's talented individuals.
They've got people, but it's just like there's not the same level of content providing. You know, if you're working for a candidate, you're calling every reporter, you're calling every show, you're calling every producer you can come up with and saying, hey, this is what we're doing. We're going to Iowa. We're going to New Hampshire. We're going to South Carolina. Here's our schedule. We have the most aggressive schedule you've ever seen from any candidate in the history of the world. And it's like, it's a little odd when one campaign just doesn't.
Well, the Tim Scott campaign's been like in witness protection. Because I remember when we were out in Iowa, and every campaign was out there except for the Tim Scott campaign. You know, like you never hear about them showing up at events in major states like Iowa. They don't do anything. Like they showed up on The View one time. He got wrecked. And then, like, that was it.
I thought he did pretty good on there.
Oh, they rocked him, dude.
I actually,
they rocked him. And they'd go to commercial, and he'd be like, it was like the whole Mitt Romney thing with Candy Crowley, where he's like, Candy, please let me talk. And they'd be like, no, we're going to commercial, Tim. You get rocked.
I agree with Duncan. I think he did very well on that, which is why it's so puzzling to me that they're not making him more available. I mean, if you looked at that Iowa State game a few weeks ago that we talked about, you saw Trump, you saw DeSantis, you saw the candidates who were like hustling for an Iowa vote share out there, and it's just like, why is Scott not among them?
Witness protection.
Well,
like, he's not been seen.
I just don't get it at some level, because there's a lot of excitement about Tim Scott coming into this race, and I think all of us have seen him perform on a national stage here over the last year or so, as he's had an incredibly important voice within the Republican Party on a whole range of issues. And people sort of, you know, there's an element of the party that gravitate towards that hope and change type thing, not, you know, the Obama version, but you know what I mean? Like just a hopeful, optimistic view.
Yeah. Right.
And like he has it. And that's a lane that is pretty wide open. And he encompassed it for a moment in time. And then it like...
Well, it's funny you mentioned the Obama thing, because a while back he was starting to get comparisons because he started taking the like woke talking points and going
you're
after
talking
DeSantis
about the school curriculum.
Yeah. So like he did that, and I think that hurt him in the polls, but also I think the way that he has disappeared has hurt him in the polls, because if you look at his numbers, he's fading.
Well,
he continues to fade.
The biggest thing was the debate.
The debate.
Yeah.
The debate was the thing.
He did he was, for the first time, he actually showed up to something, but he didn't actually show up to like say anything. Like he was quiet the whole time. I mean, I don't know what the deal is with
He'd been running a ton of ads though.
Yeah, no, and I gotta say,
ultimately
I think
problematic, right? I mean, that is the most problematic to me. It's not necessarily the performance or whatever, or the sink in the pool. I mean, that stuff kind of cardiographs throughout the course of a cycle. You have good days, you have bad days. What's most concerning is that there's nobody in this field who's spent more money than he has.
Candidate money, yeah.
And he's gone backwards significantly. And after you saw the Milwaukee debate, basically he and Nikki Haley just turned around.
Yeah, she's leapfrogged him. I think I was looking at the RCP the other day. I want to say his polling numbers have cut in half since pre-Iowa. So like,
well, and I think, I mean, I don't know how closely you guys have looked at his ads. I think his ads are actually very, very well done. So the question is, where's the shortcoming? And it seems like the shortcoming is on an organizational standpoint, like where he's not showing up at Hugh Hewitt, he's not showing up in Iowa, you're not seeing him on TV, you're not seeing him here. And I think that this shows like clever ads that are very well produced only get you so far. You know, you have to have, there has to be more to the game than that. And hopefully, for his sake, we'll see it next week in the debate.
For his sake. I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah.
To be honest. But I'm also, look, I can't imagine that there's any forum that has the lightness or comedy that we do that also provides a fair forum like Ruthless does. And we've had him on twice before in studio before.
Well, he had a book to sell, so like I guess he's not interested.
So, but like, you know, when we offer for 3 straight months, like give us a date, and they were like, sure, we'll get back to you, and then never got back to us. And then like it became an issue, and they're like, okay, we'll solve it. And then still nothing for 4 weeks. What do you do? I mean, I'm not. Look,
And then they cancel on Hugh Hewitt.
this isn't Tucker, but you got 3 million people you want to talk to. Like, I don't know. I mean, it seems like maybe it's an audience worth talking to.
What if something's up, dude? What if something's up that they have to keep hiding him?
Like what?
What are you talking
Who
about?
could it be, man? That's the thing is no one knows what's going on over there. What if there's an issue?
I love that you're just like salting
it
the
be?
ground with just.
Well, I mean, who could it be? Like, I mean, what's
Who?
What,
It went from what to who?
I mean, that might be it too. Like, is this mystery girlfriend? Does she exist? Does she not? Like, what's the issue
you think,
here?
You think that they're gonna get that Smug's gonna get to the bottom of
I
this
don't know.
thing?
Maybe
I
something's
think-
up.
I think
Something's up. Something's weird.
Look, he doesn't like doing media, but I know they like running a lot of ads. Maybe we could sell him an ad, you know? and the ad,
That's the way you can talk to the Ruthless.
yeah, the ad could just be him interviewing himself. You know, he could
The
buy a.
funny thing is he would come in here and have a great time.
I know.
As twice
Yeah,
before, and I
of course
just don't.
he would.
I literally do not understand what the holdup is. He's in town right now, by the way.
Yeah, I
Like
think
as we speak right now, he's no more than a mile.
You guys remember
from
the-
where we're at?
I
You guys
think
remember
it's
the
an
RNC,
organizational shortcoming. I don't think it's him.
You guys remember at the RNC where they had Clint Eastwood do that interview
Yeah.
where he was interviewing the invisible chair? He could do that, but it's Tim Scott and his girlfriend.
Oh,
Be like,
oh my
she can interview him.
God, this is brutal.
Brutal.
He's a great guy. He's a wonderful senator. He's a good candidate. It's just that his team isn't as organized as they probably should be. And Smug's just
Going in with the napalm bomb. Wow. Wow. All right. Well, speaking of the debate, since you raised it, Ashbrook,
Yeah.
we are over the moon about an event that we've got next week co-hosted with the Americans for Prosperity in D.C., where the thing sold out in like 7 minutes, and it's going to be an absolute blast. I can't wait for this. It's a debate watch party.
Yeah.
And are we going to stream this thing, Wolf? We are going to
Yes.
stream it. All right. So
Excellent.
for those of you who can't get into this thing, you're going to be able to watch it live, and you're going to see some stuff.
It's gonna be
I'm bringing A game for this.
yeah, it's gonna be a ball.
I'm
Yeah.
bringing A game. And I hope everybody who bought a ticket is going to bring A game too. This is not going to be your sit around and like socialize and network.
Yeah,
We're not going to do any networking at this fucking show,
No.
folks. This is
wait. I'm looking at your shirt, and all I can think is, are you bringing Louis?
we coming.
we coming.
Coming.
For our audio listeners, Josh Holmes is sporting a Colorado Buffalo shirt
Yeah.
with a famous quote.
Yeah,
from
we
their
come.
coach.
Prime is my man. And I feel like getting into this for a second
Oh,
because
here we go.
since I
yeah,
was-
nobody talks enough about that guy.
exactly.
Let's talk more
We're
about him.
missing a huge component that's on the top of mind of everybody who's listening here.
Sure.
There is one man who's made college athletics more exciting than anyone else, and his name is Deion Sanders.
Yes.
And Prime has been my man since he was at Florida State. I had the old number 2 Florida State jersey when he was in college as a kid. I mean, that's how big. I had like the kids, the small kids, number 2 Florida State when you couldn't put the name on the back because it was like pre-nil.
Yeah.
I had that sucker. And all of my, I was 21 in all of high school athletics because of Prime. I love this guy more than anything in the world. And to watch what he has done on a national stage is truly breathtaking. Like,
Yeah.
it's just revolutionized.
He's disrupted the whole thing.
Totally.
He's become the Donald Trump of college football. Absolutely.
Yeah, well,
That's not a bad comparison.
it's not a bad comparison in many ways. Like he definitely, whatever business as usual was,
Yeah.
this guy showed up and totally set it on its head. And it happened at the right time.
Well, it was
Nils
a
and everything
time, it
else.
was a timing thing with Nil.
Yeah.
For sure. 100%.
And
Yeah.
for the first time in CU's history, their tickets are sold out.
Totally.
First time in history.
I mean, they set a record for that Colorado State game, and it started at what 10:30 at
It
night
was so late.
on the East Coast.
I was just prying my eyelids open to try to watch.
It ended at,
With a-
ended at close to 2 a.m.
and it was like a 28-point spread. It
Yeah.
ends up going to like double overtime or
Yeah.
whatever. You know what I mean?
Such a
Like
great game.
Yeah.
he's got it. The guy's got it. Look, I get it.
And Duncan's the resident
Yeah,
skeptic.
he
I'm not a skeptic of it. It's just I think there's a lot of stories in college football that we're not covering because we're covering every day
Because many of
Donald
them-
Trump, excuse me, Deion Sanders. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
But
there's
many
lots
of them
important
are
stories.
boring.
Yeah, well, the stories are boring except for CU, bro.
Okay.
It is a great story, and I also have a personal connection to Deion Sanders. He played for the Cincinnati Reds, 1994 Cincinnati Reds
I knew he
team.
was going to get
The strike year team that he was on would have won the World Series.
I'm in hell. We're talking about Ohio and Deion Sanders. It's like, this is my nightmare.
We've talked about this before on the program, but there is literally no area in sport that you can come up with that Ashbrook doesn't figure out a way to winnow it back down to Cincinnati.
Man's proud of his town. It's a rare thing these days.
I'm sure Amul Thapar is extremely gratified for your offerings.
You know what? In Cincinnati, we're gratified that a guy like Amul Thapar would be from our area and still identify with it.
Okay.
Brilliant as they
Here we go. Okay. So the way we start gate antics.
Gate antics.
He's giving me gate antics. So we have a thing where we talk about it early in the show, and if we get off course, Smug calls them gate antics.
Gate antics. Like when you're watching the horses race and one of them's getting out of control, and it's like, all right, we got to start the race already.
But that's when you know you're going to see some shit. Right?
Yeah.
This episode's going to be a
Yeah, that horse got the milkshake.
He's like, hey, we got gate antics going on. You're damn right we got gate antics going on. Let's get them going. We start Thursday's show the same way we do every week with The Voice and our 5 stars.
Okay, fellas, this first one comes from CPT Thornton, and the headline is Childless and Smug.
Let's go. Get him.
So apparently Smug thinks my baby should have gone by ship when I was deployed to Korea for 3 years.
Oh, he got wolf.
Let's continue.
He got wolf.
Really, I just shouldn't have brought him. And just meet my 3-year-old son on the other side. Great take. I'll hold you to that standard when you have kids, Smug. Amazing podcast. So glad to finally have a podcast addressing the animal menace.
Well, I can understand why Smash like that. He both knocked Smug down a notch and then promoted his own campaign.
The People for the Ethical Treatment of People is a very serious cause.
It is.
And our listeners agree.
It's very important. No question about it. All right, Tucker, what do we got?
This is Rick from New Jersey. The only political pod I can listen to is the title.
God, I love Rick.
Rick writes, count me as another fan that found you through MK. Because of the humor, it's the only political podcast I can stand. The others make me want to fight a bear. Not for fun, but to commit suicide. Keep up the great work, but there's something we fans need to know. What was Smug recuperating from? Was it drug and alcohol addiction, his 14th bout of COVID, or was he kicked in the head by a horse? Inquiring minds need to know.
So if it was,
You didn't share this with the fans.
Nobody talked
was this when was this the most recent?
When you were gone
Well,
for
you're gone
3
for
weeks.
2.5 weeks.
Oh, I thought I made it clear. So I was overseas in Japan, and
Overseas is such an aristocratic way to put it. It's so classic.
You were on holiday?
Oh, it was on holiday overseas.
I had some business too. But
Yeah.
here's the best part of it is there were minions in Japan.
No.
You cannot
Come
make this
on.
up. I swear to you, this is the truth. So a couple days I went out and I was wearing one of the Smug 2024 hats, and I got stopped twice in Tokyo.
Seriously?
Yes. One from a minion who is also traveling, and one from a local who also listens. Like, Duncan, you've seen our numbers.
Yeah,
We're like
no.
international.
I know, it's crazy.
At this point.
That's
but yeah,
wild.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I
Man.
guess
Hirohito is a fan.
Well, I always assumed it was like, Americans on military bases and stuff like that. But like the numbers are getting pretty big that we may have some like,
Real international stuff.
yeah,
it's awesome.
we're big in Japan.
Gosh, I love that. That's terrific. What an amazing, like, out-of-body experience.
It was really something else.
And as a guy who values his anonymity, I can't imagine being in Japan.
Well, that was the funny thing is like
when you wear a hat that has your name on it, you kind of do it to yourself.
I was wearing the hat and these shades, and then I was like, oh, of course. Of course. Gave myself away.
Oh, I can't believe this guy recognized me.
Oh, my goodness.
I'm always happy, and it was so wonderful to hear. They had such wonderful things to
That's
say.
the best,
nice.
most ironic part about Smug and his, like, anonymity that he likes to value is I've never seen anybody more excited to meet people when they recognize him.
Well, yeah, because we have the best listeners on earth.
We
Truly.
do. But like, you know, I mean, people would expect if you ran into Smash in an airport and you're like, Ashbrook, we love the program. Like, you know,
And then
you're
he's
going to
a
get
jerk. That's the thing.
Come on. And all he does is talk about Cincinnati.
He's like, are you a Reds fan? And they're like, no. He's like, fuck off.
He won't even buy you a beer.
Oh, I love that. All right, Smug, what's our last one?
So this is from Dog Willie 1, and the topic is Smug's smugness.
I'm sensing a theme from today.
McDaniel set this one up.
I mean, you just like really buttered this up.
I'm going to follow up this one. This is a good one.
I'm going to follow up.
So it says, I am an avid listener. Found you guys through MK. Thank you so much. I listen to your show every morning. It is released, and I love it. You guys make me laugh out loud with the animal segments and the games. I've heard Smug's opinion of kids on airlines before, but I could never tell if he was serious or if his sarcasm was on the level of Matt Walsh. But his thoughts on it from the September 12th show are insane. Clearly, Smug has never been around kids if he thinks parents can control every movement or noise they make, especially kids who can't speak yet. If he ever does have kids, I can't wait to see him try to, quote, control his 1-year-old in a public place, let alone on an airplane. I hope Holmes, Duncan, or Ashbrook can film that moment and release it so all the parents listening can come down on him faster than Hunter Biden can snort a line.
Oh, yes. And you have our avowed commitment.
No, we're gonna hire a whole production team to follow him around and film him.
And I welcome
like
it,
a reality show.
Because here's the thing. My experience is when I was growing up, my parents
There we
ran
go.
an incredibly tight ship. There were these things called consequences and discipline, which a lot of folks, especially the iPad parents, who seem to take the greatest of offense to what I say because it's true,
We're gonna get protesters.
consequences and discipline. It's a simple arrangement. You make your children so terrified of disappointing you that they stay in line. That's just like a simple way. You keep it regimented. You instill discipline and control, and that's called being a parent.
and then you force them into the spelling bee competition.
If need be, mine didn't. It worked out.
That is it's such an amazing hot take. It's one of my favorite hot takes. I literally cannot wait for you to have children.
But here's the thing: is it's not foreign to y'all because I've been around all of your kids, and you've got them behaved at all moments. I've been there. We can be watching the game, and Smug's boy and Holmes' boys like angels.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
we're watching the game over Duncan's. His baby boy is just chilling and watching the game. We're talking like, you know, just how old was your baby when we were over there watching the game? Like 6 months, maybe?
6 months.
Didn't hear a peep.
Yeah.
It can be done.
It can be done. It can be done.
I just can't wait. All of you parents, there will be a just reward at some point. I don't know when it's coming. He'll have to let us know. We'll get 9 months of heads up, though. I can promise you that. All right. So we talked a lot about the Senate dress code, which, by the way, thanks to the minions. I mean, you guys are the absolute best. We thought we had a pretty funny idea by coming up with the senator sweatshirt, which was a funny idea. And it's also a high quality sweatshirt, I might add. But this thing just flew off the shelf.
Yeah. Sound like hotcakes.
People love them.
Yeah.
Hey, is there a reason, Wolf, that I can't get my shorts, my matching shorts on the program? I keep seeing the sweatshirt, which I think is an incredibly important thing to have. But part of this was the uniform. You got to have the gym shorts.
Yeah.
And like, for my money, the shorts are an incredible value.
Well, you got to have them both if you want to go the full Fetterman, the new dress code.
Full Fetterman, because if you show up with jeans in this, they're going to be like,
you're halfway there.
I don't know.
You're not strictly following the new dress code.
But if you've got the senator's shorts, then you can vote, I think.
Yeah.
I think that makes you officially a senator.
Like they have to add you to the roll call in the United States Senate if you show up with something like that.
Yeah, it's like, when you're a server at like TGI Fridays, you have to wear a certain amount of
Flair.
pieces of flair.
Yeah.
This is our flair.
They know, and at that point, they know.
Ah, here we are.
Oh, there they are.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So at this point, as you can see, they'll know you're a senator coming and going because as you're walking away, it won't be mistakable. This
No,
person is
and
a
what we
senator.
have here is the women's short. There's also a male companion. Don't worry, fellas, you don't have to wear that particular cut.
Thank God. Thank God.
Although, in this day and age, you never know. You could wear something like that.
I hope they don't.
I hope they don't. But you got to get these things because, I mean, look at we still have some nice weather left. And if you're in the South and the West, the short comes in handy. And I like in the fall a sweatshirt short combo.
That I'll frequently walk the dog like that.
In a sweatshirt short combo.
Yeah.
And we've got that here for you. Why Wolf has been holding the short back, I don't know.
I'm just glad he had the courage to finally do the right thing.
Again, that's it's store.ruthlesspodcast.com, right?
Store.ruthlesspodcast.com,
There
the
it
subdomain.
I think he's got a secret fear about the photos that we get back on the internet with this particular short.
It's a fair concern.
I think he doesn't want to tell us because he doesn't want to let us down about it. But I think that's what's going on here.
Well, you might be worried that some guy is going to buy those.
Women
a
tier
picture.
shorts.
I mean, they do say women's on it. But again, if you're a guy that likes that kind of thing and you're a Ruthless Variety Program listener, to each their own. Let's just say that. To each their own. But the point of the whole matter is that this thing has taken over. We've gotten nothing but discussion about how he's changed the dress codes.
Yeah, Fetterman got Schumer to change the dress code because he's like, you know what? I just don't give a damn about the Senate. And you can't get me to show up and be respectful to the taxpayers who we've been sent here to represent. I'm just going to show up in a hoodie.
Did you see McConnell? They asked him about it yesterday, and he's like, I think I speak for most of my colleagues when we say we dress up like adults for work. It was just so great.
Banger.
I mean, just an absolute shot across the bow.
The thing is, Fetterman wore suits when he showed up. At some point he decided that he needs to just wear shorts and sweatshirts, or his shtick is not the same.
Again, it's because he's trying to act like he's a man of the people.
It's the opposite.
When he's a trust fund baby who got his house by paying $1 to his sister. But he's a man of the people because he shows up in a hoodie and actually doesn't respect the people who sent him there.
It's a lack of respect.
And then that the reporters have tried taking his side and being like, wow, can you believe that everyone is making a big deal of Fetterman demanding to show up in a... Yeah, I do. And the funny thing is, one of these reporters I pointed out yesterday who was like, I can't believe that like Republicans are trying to make this a big deal. And then I went through her tweets back when Fetterman was running, and she said, Fetterman said that when he's going to show up, he'll have no problem sticking to the dress code.
Oh, interesting.
She's like, well, I guess the talking points have changed, so I'm just going to say what the Dems told me.
Did you retweet that? Is that out there on Twitter somewhere?
Yeah, I called her out.
Yeah.
So the news on this is there was 46 of 49 senators who said that allowing casual clothing disrespects the institution we serve and the American families we represent. Which, look, that's a pretty powerful deal. And you got to have the conference, basically, that's saying, like, this is ridiculous. And, of course, no Democrats were to sign it. Interesting deal here, though. The non-signers, Mike Braun, that doesn't seem like a guy you wouldn't sign. Josh Hawley. Interesting, right? Maybe they just didn't get the third one was Katie Boyd Britt, which I don't understand. Like those three, if you were to pick three that you would think would not be on a letter like that, that doesn't coincide at all.
Yeah, maybe they just didn't get the name.
Maybe they just didn't get the letter. Sometimes these things happen. But I was surprised to see that.
Well, maybe they had to change the dress code because you could have seen a scenario where Fetterman's walking around in shorts and a sweatshirt, and everybody's thinking, oh, well, maybe he's in the house. And they change the dress code, and they're like, oh, no, he's not in the house. He's a senator. He's not just like a slob walking around the Capitol building like the other House members. He's like, this guy is actually in the Senate. So they had to sort of like make that distinction so that everybody knew he's one of the 100.
Uh-huh.
Interesting.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, that's the thing on the attire. So the thing that everybody's talking about here, and I'm surprised at how much this has blotted out the sun, because we're not even really talking about presidential campaign politics at this point, is the spending fight that's happening. And everyone, once again, is focused on House Republicans. Like Joe Biden's doing nothing on this. Chuck Schumer is doing nothing on this. Everybody's turning around and looking at Kevin McCarthy. And again, just like the debt ceiling, Democrats are counting on him to fail to pass anything in order to succeed. Right?
That's basically their whole game plan, what it's been.
But what's so amazing to me, and this really pisses me off, what's so amazing is that there's this small group of House Republicans who basically use this as an opportunity. Like, they don't really care about spending. Some of these people really don't care about spending. But they've used it as an opportunity to try to, like, either unseat Kevin McCarthy or, like, threaten to unseat Kevin McCarthy, which is, like, the dumbest thing that I can ever imagine anyone doing for a variety of reasons. First off, there's absolutely nobody in that conference who's going to be able to have this kind of success that Kevin McCarthy has had. Period. End of story. Like, that's the end of that sentence. Secondly, here is a guy who raises, I don't know, somewhere in the neighborhood of like $400 million for House Republicans in their efforts to keep the majority.
Right.
Like, you take him off the playing field, where the fuck do you think that money's coming from?
Well, if you look
who the hell else is going to do that job?
If you look at the crew who's trying to knock him out, these people are never in jeopardy of losing their seats. They have been,
So they don't care about
they've been gerrymandered into seats that you can win into infinity.
And before you think this is like an actual fiscal conservative thing, which, look, if that's where your head's at and you want to fight this thing all the way down to try to get every last dime and then ultimately you're on board, good. That's good legislating. That's the way you should operate. But I will never take seriously any human being. I don't care what your political persuasion. If you have a problem with the amount of national debt in this country and you think the discretionary spending and appropriations process is where you're going to go right this country, all you're doing is lying, bald-faced lying to your constituents. There is less than 30% of our entire budget involved in what they're talking about up there. The 70%, the rest of it, you don't vote on at all. It's Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and interest on our national debt. All that. So on one hand, when you say, I would never, under any circumstances, think about reforming entitlements. And then you come to a spending fight and pretend like you're drawing a hard line on 30% of the budget, you're an asshole. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. And honestly, they're a liar. And all of them are liars. And I've had it. I have had it. If you want to have an appropriation spending fight, you better bring a pencil and you better start crossing out shit and delivering it and seeing if you have the votes for it. If you don't, shutting down the government over an inconsequential drop in the fucking ocean makes you look like an asshole. And if you're not playing team ball on this, guess what's going to happen at the end? If Republicans don't stick together, all that means is that Democrats are going to get a say. They're going to get leverage and they're going to spend to oblivion.
So when we had Grover Norquist on, I think he did a perfect job of encapsulating that argument where he said that, like, right now in the House, we've got a 5-seat majority. And he pointed out the same way. He was like, if you look at what the big problem is in terms of spending, you have to look at the entitlements. And he was like, to create basically a situation of where you would divide Republicans at this moment, you're just giving the game to Democrats.
Well, that's exactly
Completely
right.
just giving them.
That's exactly right.
Literally giving it.
Yeah.
If you look who holds the levers of power in each institution, Democrats own the White House, Democrats own the Senate. Republicans have one, and that's the House of Representatives. If the House of Representatives, controlled by Republicans, wants to enforce their leverage in the process, they pass something from Republicans from the House and force everybody else
That's it.
to eat it.
That's
and
it right
Clint
there.
CR could do it. And the Heritage Foundation endorsed proposal from
Not
Kevin
exactly, not
McCarthy.
exactly a centrist organization.
Right. Kevin McCarthy and the Freedom Caucus could do it. But there are some holdouts who are basically like, you know what? We don't like Kevin McCarthy, so we want every conservative in the country to suffer.
So that's the part it isn't logical and it doesn't make any sense and upsets me the most about this, Ashbrook, is the holdouts, those people who are like, leaving copies of the motion to vacate, the speaker's chair, like thinking they're cool. The people that they wanted in that chair, like Byron Donalds, like he's on board with this.
Yeah.
He's on board with the CR. The other guy who you wanted instead of Kevin McCarthy is like, yes, I'm on board with this plan. And still you're like, yep, not good enough. Nope.
Well, I mean,
and then you're going to talk about how the leadership has failed us, and it's like,
and you're the reason. You're the reason it's failed. And here's the thing that encapsulated this whole thing to me. Apparently, what's his name? The Florida guy. What's the Florida guy? Matt Gaetz.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Apparently, he was leaving in the bathrooms. Did you see this? He has a motion to vacate the chair, which is basically a procedural term for an internal move that you can make in the House of Representatives to unseat the current speaker and reopen the nightmare that we went through last January with trying to have a majority or a unanimous Republican vote for a new speaker. A nightmare the likes of which the Republican Party probably would never recover from. Right? Mm-hmm. But so this guy has got this motion to vacate the chair, and he's been talking about it for a week about this spending battle, right? No demands, no actual understanding of like what he's arguing for from a policy perspective, but just the failure, like to your point. Oh, the failure of leadership, except for his existence is the reason that it's a failure of leadership. He starts leaving this motion to vacate in bathrooms around the Capitol. Like one of the most passive aggressive acts I've seen in a long time.
We do not need passive aggressivity out of conservatives. We need leadership. And I am very sympathetic to House conservatives who are like, you know what? Leadership hasn't built the wall. We need a border that's under control, and who are pushing for things like border security, pushing for things like lower taxes, lower spending. But they're like, a motion to vacate the chair doesn't secure our border. That's what needs to happen. And there are conservatives who have fought these battles before. They're not the new people who are in the House. It's not like a novel idea. If you going back to people, like I'm thinking about like a guy like John Shattuck, who always did battle with like Denny Hastert and Boehner and Blunt. And he used
doing
to
battle with Denny Hastert was dirty business, from what I understand.
Shattuck used to say there are a lot of people who come here and they view their role in government as to go along and get along. I view my role as to bring everything to the right, and what we don't see enough of is that. We need people who are bringing everything to the right.
Who does that?
Not just for the sake of their own personal gratification, but for the sake of the fucking border wall, for the sake of bringing this like spending under control. Get serious. We need real leadership.
If you play team ball, and this is where the legislative politics works. If you play team ball and you pick a priority like funding the border wall, for example, and you pass that with your slim House majority and you send that on over to the Senate, that's your marker that you protect.
Right.
The end product isn't going to be exactly what you passed out of the House, but if this is your thing, if you're like, nothing passes my House unless I've got my thing and I have all my people on board with it, guess what? It happens.
Right.
When you fight like this and you try to embarrass the guy on your own team, it would be like if your offensive line decided to just start blaming the offensive coordinator in the middle of the game. Like, of course, you're not going to get to where you need to go.
Right.
Like, if you operate as a team, you're going to get these priorities over the finish line. The alternative is that the Senate basically just passes whatever the hell it is that the Democratic Senate can pass, shoves it down your throat in the brink of a government shutdown, and you're going to have a unanimous Democratic caucus, not Republican caucus, Democratic caucus with like 30 or 40 House Republicans who, I don't know, happen to think you ought to keep the lights on in the Capitol.
And that's how that's how you get a country with no border wall.
Yeah.
That's how you get a country that spends and spends and spends, and there is no legitimate check, because we need conservatives who are actually strategic and strong.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let me tell you the end of this story with they asked McCarthy. He's swinging a hot bat. I love the stuff that he's doing. And I understand like the DC crowd and all this stuff. They're like, oh, it's another bad day for Kevin McCarthy because he, lost some motion on the House. Like, who gives a shit? None of that stuff ultimately matters. But he's got like the impeachment thing, which is, I think, well reasoned and well delivered. His response to them asking him about these things left in the bathroom, file the fucking motion then.
Yeah, I mean,
that
calls a bluff.
That's what leadership looks like, folks. That's what it is.
That calls a bluff.
Right? I mean, he may not be everybody's cup of tea. You find me somebody who can do all the things that Kevin McCarthy can do, and then let's come talk.
So it's confirmed those are being left there by Matt Gaetz?
Yeah.
So speaking of Matt Gaetz, I don't know if y'all heard the rumor. Did you see the rumor? It started coming out earlier in the week that he's considering running for governor in Florida.
Oh, yeah, I did see that.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll say this. If there's also been rumors that Rubio's considering running. If Gaetz runs and Rubio jumps in that primary, I would bundle for Gaetz. So just a heads up. Just saying.
You're just an FYI.
FYI.
Just an FYI.
Infamous war with Senator Rubio.
I mean, he's got personal access to Gron, and the way you read the morning newsletters, they say that the ethics investigation into Matt Gaetz is what he's upset about. That's why he wants to get rid of McCarthy. None of that stuff has anything to do with all the points that John was making.
Yeah.
Which is why you should be there in the first place. If you believe in a right of center country, you ought to accomplish a few things in the process.
Right. I mean, it's not too much to ask. We actually do have the House of Representatives, and selling the majority on people like what we're delivering is investigations of the corrupt Biden administration. What we need to also deliver is a border wall, some sort of budget control. Like, we have to actually use the lever that we have. And I mean, I can go on. I don't need.
And the voters will judge us on our ability to be competent.
And conversely, they will judge us on our ability to be incompetent.
Right.
Because what the Dems really want more than anything is Republican infighting that leads to a government shutdown. That Biden ahead of an election can say, "Look, guys,
that's why the whole strategy. Look, you don't have to be. You don't have to be a master political strategist. You don't need to be Karl Rove to figure this out. When their entire strategy is, let's not do anything, because I don't think they can do anything. When it's from day one of a House Republican majority, if that is the exclusive strategy of the Democratic Party, what does that tell you?
Right.
They don't have a plan. They don't know what they're doing.
They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And they could burn this country to the ground. They don't care as long as they're in power.
Because here's the reality. Actually, whether Democrats are in power, whether Democrats are out of power, when the government is shut down, Republicans get the blame. And it's a function of the fact that Democrats control the media. Democrats work for the media. And the media works for Democrats. So I don't care. I mean, we've been through a lot of shutdowns where Republicans were in the majority and Republicans were in the minority. Every single time Republicans got the blame because the media writes the stories that Democrats tell them to write. Mm-hmm. So it really doesn't matter. You can make an argument. We can say like, oh, it's really Democrats who are shutting down the media. We can spin and spin and spin and come up with the most clever arguments we can devise.
And let me just
say,
it
never works.
This is the capstone. This is the capstone. I believe that it never works. It never works, and it never will work. But I don't think the absence of that as a tool it works either. Like I think if you as a House majority decided that you had this thing that you needed to have, there's this thing that we all agree needed to have, and we're going to keep the government open, but we need this thing. You will get to the end of that process and Democrats will swallow that thing. Mm-hmm. They will have to. Now, it's not going to be like repeal Obamacare, the dumb fuckery of 2012, but it's going to be something. And it's going to be something significant that you can get done in a divided government. And like that is what happened during the debt ceiling discussions.
Like, how about border wall? I mean, the border is out of control.
Right.
Even Democrats acknowledge it. Dare them to oppose a border wall.
Yeah. All right, so on the other side of the Capitol, we're dealing with the Senate. One big story that has happened over the last few weeks is the success of Steve Daines, which I personally love the guy. I think his staff's terrific too. I think they're doing a great job. The thing that Politico has picked up on this week is that this guy's got relationships across the Republican Party. On one hand, he's extremely close and strategic concert with Mitch McConnell, and he has the same relationship with President Trump.
Right, and it's important because he's running the NRSC this cycle.
Yeah, and this is the area that I think is so important, is that it also allows him to go to both sides to say this gives us the best chance to win. This candidate, this strategy gives us the best chance, and everybody listens. Mm-hmm. There's no skepticism to it. And so his recruiting is successful as a result. The campaigns that they're running is successful as a result. I mean, look, ultimately this boils down to West Virginia, Ohio, and Montana. 3 red states with Democratic incumbents that if you can win those, you have a Senate majority. Outside of that, big news this week that McCormick in Pennsylvania may very well get in, maybe as soon as today. But he also had the endorsement of, what was the guy?
Mastriano.
The Democrats were trying to recruit into another bloody primary that we would, kill ourselves with. So they've sort of straightened that out. You've got other places like Wisconsin, other places like an open seat in Michigan. You've got Arizona, the perennial kick in the nuts, which is just, I don't even want to talk about it. I'm not even going to talk about Arizona. Nevada, which, a guy that ran last cycle in Sam Brown is coming back. And, if he can kind of put the campaign together in a presidential election year, it could be an interesting seat. So there's a lot of opportunities out there. The point is you got candidates on the field here that can all win. Jim Justice is up by like 20 points in West Virginia. Either of the two, we've had both of them on, LaRose or Moreno. Both of those guys are great in Ohio. In Montana, you got this Tim Sheehy, who I think is coming on at some point here in the next month or two.
He's the Navy SEAL, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, this dude is, he's a hot ticket.
Yeah.
People are like gravitating towards him, and I think he's going to run a hell of a campaign. Anyway, those are 3 all-star recruits. None of that happens unless Steve Daines has that profile that we just discussed, where he's able to go in and talk to one side of the party and the other and convince people that like this is the best path, and they believe him because they know he's got the best interest of the party at heart.
Yeah. I mean, recruitment's a tough thing to do. The waters get choppy when you're running statewide in a Senate race that could determine the majority. You're going to have the national media all over you. The lights get bright. So like having somebody like Daines who can help guide that process it's just, unless you do it for a living, you don't probably understand it, but it's really, really important.
Well, it all starts with priorities. If Steve Daines were not the kind of person the kind of leader who put the party and conservative objectives and the team above himself, we wouldn't be in this position.
Yeah.
It really has everything to do with what do you put first? Do you put other people first or do you put yourself first? And like I can't even imagine somebody like Daines is doing an incredible job at the NRSC. He really is, and his team is so smart. I mean, I'm biased for a variety of reasons in my fanfare of his executive director Jason Thielman, but like great guy, great team, and we're lucky to have him.
I want to welcome to the show a very interesting guy who has done some incredible work lately that you definitely need to know about if you don't already. We stumbled upon this a couple of weeks ago, and it is amazing stuff that I wish I could tell you is terribly surprising, but it's not. This is Parker Thayer. He is an investigative researcher, and what he has found, in particular as it pertains to everybody votes, a nice sounding opportunity for people to get involved in. It turns out it's not for everybody.
Yeah, it's not exactly. At the Capital Research Center, we do like a lot of investigative work. We kind of track the flow of money in the public policy and elections space, particularly nonprofits. And we found out about this organization called the Everybody Votes campaign. They raised a little over $100 million in the 2020 or 2016 to 2020 cycle. And
that's a big number.
Many people are saying it's big, huge even. They've registered about 5 million people to vote in 8 targeted swing states using entirely tax-exempt contributions from all the big names, George Soros, Warren Buffett, et cetera, labor unions, League of Conservation Voters is even in there. And basically, we're functioning as an entirely tax-exempt Democratic PAC with no campaign finance disclosures whatsoever. And we have all of the leaked documents, all of the receipts to show it.
So this is the part that I wanted to, and this is a little bit technical for our audience, but there's a lot of different formulations for political activity in this country, right? You have PACs, 527s, super PACs. All these things are reportable from the FEC. And then you got like this gray area with dark money with 501c4s that operate ostensibly for public good. but they have sort of some rough guidelines about certain amounts of money that they can spend on direct advocacy, political expenditures. This seems like it's in an entirely different category here.
Well, yeah, we like to call the three rivers of money in politics. There's the PAC contributions, the things you get texts about, and the quadruple matched contributions, and et cetera.
Right.
And then they've got the dark money, like you said, the 501c4s. But then the biggest, and we have the data to back this up, the biggest flow of money into American politics is through these 501c3s. Things like think tanks and public policy advocacy. But this one, what they claim, and that the IRS currently allows, for some inexplicable reason, is for nonprofits to do massive voter registration campaigns. They say this is a public good. I would argue that voter registration isn't something that needs to be subsidized. This doesn't.
But either way, if the concept of voter registration is a public good, then that concept clearly could not have partisan lines.
Of course not. They would
have to be nonpartisan.
Yeah, you would think.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not the case. What we found using the old WikiLeaks emails, tax forms, and some other leaked documents from some great reporters out there, is we found that this voter registration campaign that I talked about, $100 million, was cooked up in John Podesta's emails back in 2015, essentially to be Hillary Clinton's re-election campaign, it seems. And they're going to go out. They care so much about underrepresented communities and their ability to vote and register to vote. They care so much they're going to go out and register them, all of them, just in the swing states, though. Not the rest of them. The rest of them don't matter.
Huh. And I imagine they fit a particular profile. A lot of like
the
churches, pro-life areas.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, gun owners.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, all of the underrepresented. No, of course these are demographics that are overwhelmingly Democratic, and they're going to use tax-exempt dollars to do this. And in leaked memos that we found from a super PAC called Mind the Gap, which you might have heard of before, it's actually Sam Bankman-Fried's mom's pet super PAC. Yeah, I know. It's check out the report. It sounds crazy. It's actually true. Her super PAC sent a memo to all of their donors, and you guys are obviously very familiar with political fundraising and stuff like that. Would you ever tell someone to not donate to whatever? She tells them, don't waste your money on us. Instead, give all of your money, like 90% of it, to these 501c3 voter registration groups, which are supposedly not partisan and not allowed to affect.
She's like, you won't believe the write-offs.
Yeah, they did the math. It was 4 to 10 times more cost effective at netting additional Democratic votes when compared to campaign spending or PAC contributions or candidates. And that's an exact quote. 4 to 10 times more cost effective to use ostensibly nonpartisan charities to do voter registration groups. And this is something they've been getting away with since 2008. Our former president, Obama, his first job was as a community organizer at Project Vote, which is loosely tied to all of this. I mean, this is something that's an abuse of the nonprofit sector that's been going on for a really long time.
So let me just put a fine point on it.
The scale here is crazy.
Yeah, so what we've got, 501c3s are supposed to be sort of sacrosanct in the terms of the IRS, and that they actually have to be legitimately divorced from the political cycle. They've got these things have to be genuine public good deals, in large part because they're tax exempt. You can write these off if you contribute to them. That is not the case for a 501c4. It's certainly not the case for any political contribution that you make. But the whole deal is that they are so strict about it that there are many churches throughout the course of the last 20, 30 years that I've been around that worry a lot about weighing into basic tenets of their church, like pro-life, for example.
Yeah.
Because of the political connotations and the fact that they could lose their tax status.
Yeah, they're afraid of the IRS.
And the IRS has, on occasion, made sort of entreaties into these organizations to say, you better watch your step. These guys are using these nonprofit tax-exempt organizations.
Running circles around any semblance of what the law is supposed to be in this.
The exact quote here from the report you guys put out is, quote, the most effective tactic to score additional Democratic votes. They're just saying it. They're just saying it.
Yeah, that's a memo from a super PAC telling people to use nonprofits instead of super PACs.
Yeah.
I mean, how does this?
How many super PACs are there that tell people not to donate to them? I mean, that's how partisan these nonprofits are. The super PACs are saying these guys are better than us. So please don't waste your money on us.
So it's founded by all these Clinton folks, Podesta and what have you.
Yeah.
Funded by, I imagine, the usual suspects, in addition to Sam Bankman-Fried's mother.
Yeah. Nearly $200 million to date.
Wow.
And it's like the George Soroses of the world and the...
I mean, all sorts of, the great myth of money in politics right now is that the right and conservatives are the only ones who are backed by the moneyed interests of the world.
Right.
But I mean, you guys have talked about things like Arabella Advisors on the podcast.
Yeah.
They're giving tens of millions of dollars to this organization. Things like the Tides Foundation, another $1 billion per cycle nonprofit organization. I mean, it is not just George Soros. The left has 20 George Soroses out there, and all of them seem to have been funding this thing. We have an entire appendix. It's nearly 2 pages long, detailing hundreds of millions of dollars that we tracked into this organization. And some of them, in the grant descriptions, outright say, hey, we're donating to this nonprofit for the purposes of supporting Mind the Gap, which is a super PAC.
I mean, all right, so just for those of you who aren't in the business, and you're probably asking yourself, voter registration in and of itself, does that constitute a big problem? Here's where it constitutes a big problem, is when you have these C3 dollars going in, specifically trying to only register one party. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, you have like COVID laws, for example, or you have these aggressive, ballot harvesting legislation that's gone through in a number of states, Nevada and others, is that these groups are then sharing information about who's registered. Mm-hmm. And at some point, all people are doing is coming in behind the registration and picking up the ballot.
No, that seems cynical, Josh. You think those people, after they get that registration, get a call from somebody from the Democratic Party? I would be shocked.
They're just civic-minded heroes. I mean, they're heroes of our democracy. They're saving us. I mean, and you're exactly right. I mean, in 2020, the group that I was writing about in this report it was something like $20 million to consultants to do voter registration consulting. I looked them up on the FEC website. Every single one of them is getting paid tens of millions of dollars by the Democratic Party.
And there you go.
Voter registration work.
Yeah.
But supposedly, when they're being paid by the nonprofit, it's somehow now nonpartisan when you're paying the partisan consultants to do nonpartisan, supposedly.
Well, and that's the loophole in that system.
They're a go-between.
Yeah, you can get, as long as the data in and of itself resides with the consultant, you can do work on both sides of this deal, huh?
Yeah.
And it's not exactly the C3 that's getting into the dirty work of getting the people to the polls. All they're doing is getting people to register.
Yeah. I mean, you got databases like NGP Van, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yeah.
Those databases don't get maintained for free.
Well,
these nonprofits are doing a lot of the heavy lifting there.
I seem to remember an investigation into Gretchen Whitmer's office trying to hire one of these Democrat firms to do government work.
Yeah, COVID outreach.
On the COVID outreach.
I remember that, yeah.
I mean, it's like one hand washes the other over there. It's incredible.
So you've obviously surfaced all of this, and just on its face, the C3 aspect to it, you would think there would be some interest from the IRS.
Well, Biden hired, 87,000 more agents? You think they might be on this?
Somebody having a dull day over there? Take a look?
I seem to remember back after, 2010 and the beginning of the Tea Party movement, every mom and pop local Tea Party group that did weekly coffees got a letter from the IRS.
Yeah.
People they were raising like $250, a month just to have a split lunch, and they were getting letters from the IRS. Like, where the hell are these people's letters?
I mean, nothing?
Nothing.
Oh.
I mean, they've been getting away with this for a very long time. And I'm not a guy who's a big fan of the IRS doing anything. Cause,
right.
They're a 3-letter agency. We can't trust them with too much enforcement power.
Right.
Totally.
But it would be so simple to say, hey, voter registration is not something that needs to be subsidized with tax-exempt organizations anymore. I mean, politicians, PACs, et cetera, parties have more than enough incentives to make sure people vote for them. I mean, is this really something that needs to be funded through $100 million organized campaigns that are supposedly charitable, but also happen to be coordinated with every single Democratic PAC in the world, it seems?
And also, I mean, look, I don't know this, and I don't know if this is in your report or not, but I mean, look, they've taken some liberties about who's contributing to what with Arabella Advisors, right? We've dealt with the the foreign investment, for example. You know, I mean, it's not exactly they're staying between the confines of the law. It seems mind-boggling to me that nobody's even asked the question.
Well, that's actually an excellent point and gets a great segue for me. The way that this campaign, we initially discovered it, was we were searching around for voter registration activities in Podesta's emails on WikiLeaks back in the day, and we figured out that there was an email from Hans-Jörg Wyss, who you guys know are familiar with.
Interesting, yeah.
It was actually his foundation that sent Podesta the whole idea for this plan in the first
You're
place.
You're kidding me.
No.
Wow.
He
really puts a bow on the whole thing.
No, he's a real-life Bond villain. Hans-Jörg Wyss, who you guys don't know, well, you guys know about him, so other people might not. He's a Swiss billionaire with a history of making like just outright illegal contributions to candidates as he's a Swiss national. He's not a citizen.
Right. And we have a pretty black letter law
and so
regarding
puts
that here in the United
tons of
States.
money into 501c3 and 501c4 political advocacy in the U.S., and that's kind of raising a lot of red flags lately. The House Ways and Means Committee is looking at it now.
Yeah.
His foundation was the one who came up with this whole thing. Molly McCusick, his foundation president, sent John Podesta an email with a very sophisticated, basically spreadsheet full of information on how to do this whole voter registration campaign.
You may ask yourself, why is it?
Version.
Yeah, why is it that foreign nationals would be so interested in American voter registration
and evading laws to do it?
Yeah. Yeah, and this is the same stuff as those, going back to in 2020, you had what was called the Zuck Box. That was also done through a 501c3. And when 501c3s are getting involved in elections like this, it opens up our election system to interference from foreign nationals because, 501c3s, they're supposed to be charitable. We should let anybody fund charities,
Yeah, I mean, normally we encourage that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure there's a lot of well-meaning people who would see something like a voter registration project and be like, yeah, I would like to donate to that.
Yeah, well,
but like the problem
says here everybody votes. It says here.
Yeah,
it says right in the paperwork, right on the title.
Just in 8 swing states, though.
Yeah.
Well.
And only if you're like a 505 Democrat who's, the most liberal person.
Their website actually keeps track. They have 75% of the people they registered were people of color. Over 50% were women. They keep very careful track of the demographics they're registering for some odd reason. I can't imagine.
Well, these marketing materials, they don't come up with themselves.
They need it for the donor report.
They do.
I mean, they themselves acknowledge it's so effective.
I mean, it is wild when you couple this with all of the law changes that we had during the COVID era, and then what Democrats have been trying to do for like 25 years with either auto registration, total mail, keeping sort of extremely quote unquote dirty voter registration logs. All of it is an attempt to try to create a bubble of insulation around a Democratic vote that doesn't exist in real life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically just trying to get people and their votes all in block on the Democratic side and slam it into the ballot box.
Yeah.
I mean, it's shocking.
Yeah. And I mean, they would love to be able to use things like automatic voter registration, and Biden issued an executive order ordering, basically every federal administration to find ways to register people to vote. They'd love to do that because the left's mega donors have to spend so much money on this stuff every year. I mean, you get groups like State Voices, America Votes, the Voter Participation Center, and this voter registration project. All of them together are somewhere near double the size of like the RNC and DNC and RSCC and all, et cetera. All of those organizations, you put them all together, all their fundraising, double it. That's about the size of these voter registration groups. I mean, it is. I have an op-ed on that in the Washington Examiner. And I mean, it is amazing. People cannot fathom how large it's basically an industry. I mean, it is $1 billion per cycle industry.
Oh man. Well, all right. So this has been going on, at least in concept, since 2015, and in practice now, it's sort of in perpetuity, right? I mean, it's still going.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of the things we found is on their, they intentionally kept what they were up to secret from 2016 to 2020, and they were successful about it until we put out a report. Now they don't really care as much because apparently the IRS is just going to allow them to continue getting away with this.
Yeah.
They have a website and have job listings up. They hired the former director of the Wisconsin Democratic Party to lead their nonprofit, nonpartisan voter registration campaign.
Oh, I can't believe it's not
nonpartisan.
It's
I can't believe it.
Maybe if they accepted donation through Venmo, we could get the IRS's interest.
That's true.
You know?
You better not hit that $601
No.
mark because
No.
you're going straight to the IRS.
Well, most of the donations to these groups are in the order of like $10 million.
Yeah.
So it doesn't. I think they might be a little over that threshold.
It's just.
But yeah, they're doing this again in 2024.
Yeah.
They're already. They have 30 plus employees. They are ready. They're doing this again.
So you're staying on this.
Yeah, we will be staying on this a lot. This is something.
Have you gotten any interest on Capitol Hill? Looking.
Yeah, the
at
House
this?
Ways and Means Committee is asking about voter registration groups that are, whether they're behaving in a partisan manner. I would say yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, this is another reason why it makes a lot of difference what kind of administration that you have, because nobody's going to enforce this on the Democratic side.
Yeah.
No question about it. Thank you for your work, Parker. This is really important stuff. Glad you could tell our audience a little bit about
Thanks
it.
for having me on.
If people want to follow up and see what you're up to, where do they go?
You can check me out on Twitter or on the Capital Research Center's website. We also run a great website called Influence Watch that I got to plug real quick.
Yeah, do it.
Great encyclopedia of everything in the public policy space. You can look up any left-wing or right-wing group, and it'll tell you a lot about their finances and kind of what they're up to.
InfluenceWatch.org?
InfluenceWatch.org.
Okay.
CapitalResearch.org for this report.
And really do read this report. It's called How Charities Secretly Help Win Elections. It's like a PDF here on the CapitalResearch.org website. Yeah. Enthralling stuff.
Everybody votes, Michael. Everybody votes.
I never thought 501c3s could be so interesting, but they've made it interesting.
They've made it interesting.
36 pages, I think.
Yeah.
It seems long. It's worth it.
Wow.
Everything that we talked about might be going over some people's heads. I promise if you read the report, this will make sense, and it'll blow your mind how the left is abusing the political process through these nonprofits.
Incredible. Incredible work. Parker Thayer, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
You guys want some animal news?
Yes.
Always.
All right, so the black bear sighting, this is according to NBC News. Black bear sighting in a tree at Disney World triggers closures at the Magic Kingdom. Now, I've been interested in the Minions' reaction to this because we've fused multiple sides of our world.
Yeah.
There has been the suggestion that perhaps Hank and his consigliaries are using this as a peace offering towards what I think is the best organized animal offensive around the Ruthless Variety Program. To say, like, we have a problem, you have a problem. Disney adults, we understand this is one of your problems. Maybe we can take care of that for you.
Yeah.
Is that what's happening here?
I worry about that because that sort of activity has been tried in the United States before. It didn't work out in Afghanistan in the 1970s.
You mean like arming the moderate bears on the ground?
If we just got them the Stinger missiles, we certainly won't have any problems in 30 years.
So I leave the gate open. Maybe the bear gets in the tree at the Magic Kingdom. Maybe he's sitting in a teacup when one of these guys comes around for the magic ride.
I think this
Thank you, brave fighters of the Mujahideen.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is a great idea. I don't think you need to necessarily facilitate it. It's more of like a let them fight, like if these bears want to show some goodwill and go after some of the solo Disney adults who roll up to a children's playground, I don't have a problem with that.
If they take out, it's proof in the pudding.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. First, show us.
If the first time that one of these bears becomes aggressive, it's towards a Disney adult.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you've got our attention.
Maul a few of the Disney adults who are there. And we can talk.
Every Disney adult gets a free honey popsicle when they walk in. New special here at the Magic Kingdom.
And you got bears coming down the trees just annihilating the tree.
What you guys are really saying is that the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah.
Well, in some ways, look, that's Middle Eastern politics in many ways, right? Isn't it? It just so happened to be playing out at the Magic Kingdom.
And there are all kinds of bears rolling around the Magic Kingdom. The Country Bear Jamboree, Pooh and his honey pot. And I think it's a very easy thing to slip a real bear into the system and take out some of the creeps.
There's nobody who's been a bigger animal hawk on the program than yourself, John. Does this satisfy any of your concerns? Will this allow you to perhaps take a half step back in your overall mission?
Are you going soft on terror?
I think I believe in a people first world.
Wow.
I really do.
So you side with the Disney
I
adult?
always believe in a people first world, but I do think in certain circumstances, sometimes animals serve a purpose.
I think the like solo Disney adults who don't have kids are just rolling up to a kid's playground are subhuman to begin with, so they don't count as like those covered under the people.
I'm just like
I'm
just picturing like a scene out of one of those like campy horror movies where like they're going through the log flume ride, and there's the animatronic bears, and then one of the bears is fucking real. Just mauls their ass.
I love that.
Like, boy, Disney is fun without kids, isn't it? And then it's like,
wow, these animatronics are more real than I remember.
more real than ever. Hey, that one's not moving its mouth. Oh God, no.
Now it's moving its mouth. Oh my God, I love that. Okay, all right. So for our listeners who tune in for the games, we're going to be back next week with multiple games. We're going to play King of the Hill next week. Frankly, we've just run out of content here. We've got a full week. We've been focusing on all kinds of things, but we're going to bring you a full-throated effort on King of the Hill, and we'll throw another couple games in there just to have fun with.
Yeah,
good idea.
Plus, we're going to do a debate party. You get that live stream. There's a bunch of stuff to look forward to. But it's been a big week, fellas, and I think we did it.
I think so. Absolute banger of an episode, gentlemen. Thank you so much to our listeners, especially those who have subscribed on the YouTube. If you have not yet, you are missing out on all the fun. So be sure and do that. And I think we did it. We'll see folks at the live show next week, and then we'll see the rest of you next week. So until next time, minions, keep the faith, hold the line, and own the libs. We'll see you on Tuesday. Stay ruthless.